There is a silence in the courtroom so complete it could be mistaken for absence. Yet the air is dense, weighted, every breath carefully measured. Somewhere near the back, a pen hovers just above paper, its tip trembling, caught between instinct and disbelief. A hum of fluorescent lights underscores the quiet, but even that sound seems to bow in reverence to what's unfolding. The judge's voice cuts through, calm, deliberate, sterile. Please confirm your full name for the record. And then from the witness stand, a voice, British, unmistakably so, responds with a gravity that reorders the room. Henry Charles Albert David. The name is formal, rehearsed perhaps, but its echo lands like a gavel. No title, no privilege. Just the man. Just the moment. The court stenographer forgets to type for a beat. The keys beneath her fingers lie still. A legal aide blinks, then stares. Reporters locked in behind their laptops begin to look up, some mouthing silent confirmations to one another as though afraid to break whatever spell has just been cast. One camera operator turns to his colleague, lips parting. That's him? The figure on the stand does not shift. His fingers remain clasped tightly beneath the table. Knuckles white, the tension in his jaw visible, even from a distance. His hair, slightly tousled, is not redder than usual, but it seems brighter in this room, against the gray palette of grief and guilt and buried truths. Across from him, seated in a row just behind the defense, an attorney's gaze does not lift from his notes, but a bead of sweat betrays him, sliding slowly from temple to collar like a silent confession. No one expected this. Not today. Not here. And in a room full of men used to power, it was the silence that finally held it. Just hours before the courtroom fell into that stunned silence, the world was still pretending everything was as it had always been. The trial had already dragged on for weeks. Day 18, another procedural storm of statements, evidence logs, and cross-examinations. The press pool was tired, the defense looked worn, and the prosecution was focused but routine. Then, just before the midday recess, a folder slid across the oak grain of the prosecution's desk. Sealed, red-taped, stamped, confidential, witness addendum in sharp black ink. The clerk picked it up without ceremony. It was supposed to be routine, another witness in a case already bloated with voices and shadows. But when she peeled back the cover and scanned the first page, something shifted. Her brow furrowed, then lifted, then tightened again. She glanced toward the judge, then back to the paper. Looked again. She even turned the page over, as if expecting an annotation that would make it make sense. She whispered to the lead prosecutor, who barely moved, only adjusted his glasses and took the document from her. He read silently for a long time. His hand didn't shake, but his grip on the folder grew visibly tighter. He flipped the page again, then once more, just to be sure. The name was printed clearly, without disguise or abbreviation. His Royal Highness, Prince Henry, Charles Albert David. Formal, unmistakable. The folder was passed silently down the bench. Each lawyer receiving it paused, adjusted their posture, and said nothing. No one asked why. They all knew not to. In the press gallery, information spreads not through volume, but through glance. Eyes meet, then avert, then meet again. Across 3 rows of correspondence, a wave of recognition rose like a tide. Journalists who had covered royal weddings, state visits, even the fallout of Megxit, suddenly trying to confirm with nothing but a look what they dared not type yet. No one tweeted. No phones were lifted. It was as if everyone feared that naming it would break something, some sacred illusion or deeply buried truth. Across the Atlantic, in a TMZ conference room still half lit from morning edits, a senior editor dropped his coffee. It hit the table, sloshed over printouts and schedules, and no one moved to clean it. Instead, he pointed at the screen where a name had just popped into their witness alert system. "Is this a joke?" he said to no one in particular. But the room was quiet. On another screen, the live trial feed flickered with static. The silence became a kind of alarm. In Windsor, a comms officer read the same file through encrypted lines. At first, she assumed it was a media hoax, a deepfake. But then came the private verification request from the U.S. Department of Justice. Her phone buzzed once more, this time from the royal family's legal team. It wasn't a request. It was an instruction. Do not comment. Do not speak. Do not log this call. The palace went still. No tweets, no flags, no press release. Just silence. There was no explanation, not from the prosecution, not from the court, not from the palace. Only the consequences unfolded, like glass falling in slow motion. The press box held its breath. The courtroom waited for the name to be spoken out loud. And when it finally was, hours later, it didn't matter how composed the voice sounded. The ground had already shifted, not from noise, but from what was left unsaid. May 2012. London. The kind of night that felt designed, opulent without arrogance, decadent without decay. The rain had stopped just an hour before, leaving the windows of the high-rise penthouse smeared in diamond droplets, blurring the city lights into something softer, something surreal. Inside, the party was already unfolding in whispers and rhythm. The scent of burning oud and chilled Dom Perignon coiled through the air like memory itself. The lights were low, golden, flattering. Shadows leaned inward, as if listening. Prince Harry stood near the marble bar, red-cheeked, laughing too hard at something someone said, half smiling in the way people do when they're seen but not watched. He wasn't yet a husband, not yet a father. His shirt collar was slightly open, his blazer tossed somewhere behind a velvet chaise. In his hand, the glass of scotch swirled with idle grace, more ornament than vice. He looked young, younger than we remember. Diddy arrived without a word. He didn't need to speak. His entrance was its own event. The room's temperature dipped by half a degree, and even the DJ dropped the volume by instinct. A leather coat draped over his shoulders like a throne, shoes clicking like punctuation. People moved without touching him. He did not part the crowd. They unraveled before him. His smile was small, sharp, knowing. He said hello with his eyes. Champagne flutes clinked. Laughter resumed in tighter clusters. Somewhere near the balcony, a model lit a cigarette that no one told her to put out. The jazz, once bold, now played like a memory of itself. Half seduced, half lost in smoke. Harry noticed Diddy only when he felt the presence, not the name. A slow turn. Their eyes met, not with recognition, but assessment. Diddy offered a hand, not with deference, but command. Harry shook it. What passed between them in those first seconds can't be measured in language. It was the silence of men who have been told they are powerful, meeting in a place where power is currency and silence the only bank. Then a movement, a hand on Harry's shoulder. Gentle, firm, not aggressive, but directing. He was guided, quietly, almost politely, away from the bar, down a corridor shrouded in soft candlelight and the hush of velvet curtains. No one followed. No one asked. The hallway swallowed the light behind them. A door opened. A whisper, a footstep. Then it closed. 15 minutes passed, maybe 20. When the door finally creaked open again, Harry stepped out alone. His face had not changed, not exactly, but his shoulders carried something new. He wasn't drunk. He wasn't red-cheeked anymore. He wasn't anything you could define in a sentence. His steps were measured, deliberate, as if gravity had doubled in that small stretch of carpet between the room and the party. He did not return to the bar, did not collect his blazer, did not say goodbye. He simply exited, quietly. A doorman waved him past, confused but professional. The rain outside had started again, softer this time, like background noise in a dream. In the cab ride home, Harry said nothing. Not to his aide, not to the driver. He didn't check his phone. He didn't speak. He watched the London skyline disappear behind him. It did not blink back. Years later, he would say it was just another party, that nothing happened, that his memory of that night was vague. But there are things that linger without detail, sensations that don't require events to be remembered, because some things don't need to be remembered, because they are never forgotten. Outside courtroom 8 on day 18, the hallway is strangely quiet for what's just occurred. Not hushed from reverence, hushed from precision. The kind of silence that crackles beneath the skin, alert and watchful, like a room of people waiting for a window to shatter. The paparazzi don't shout this time. They don't jostle or call out names. They aim. Their cameras, long-lensed and matte black, move like weapons, locked on door frames and reflective panels. They already know they missed the shot. The subject didn't come through the front. No procession, no royal escort, no coat-swishing dramatics. Just a flash, brief, grainy, captured from the service level, where someone wasn't supposed to be filming. Inside the press lounge, the air is electric. Phones buzz in frantic succession. Tabletops rumble with alerts. Notifications chirp like locusts, each one carrying a fragment of the unbelievable. A junior correspondent refreshes a group chat. The message is simple, chilling in its clarity. He's here. Attached is the image. Low res, dimly lit, but clear enough. A man in a slate overcoat entering a private elevator. The British royal insignia stitched in silver thread barely catches the light, but it's there. Above it, a red head bowed, not in shame, but in weariness. No one says the name out loud. They don't have to. It spreads like a coded pulse. By the coffee cart, two assistants exchange glances. One tightens her grip on her notepad. The other presses her lips together like a prayer being smothered. It's not surprise in their eyes. It's something older, colder. Recognition mixed with dread. They brought in him, a legal aide murmurs, more to himself than anyone. He looks down the hallway like something might appear, but nothing does. Nothing needs to. Within minutes, the photo hits encrypted media servers. Within 30 more, it lands in private Slack channels across 5 major outlets. But no one publishes it, not yet. They all wait for clearance, for context, for courage. Publishing a photo is easy. Understanding what it means is something else entirely. At GQ, a senior editor holds the image on screen for a long while before saying, "This isn't optics. This is strategy." His intern doesn't respond. At Vogue, a writer tweets a cryptic line, "The crown bends more easily than you think. It garners 20,000 likes in an hour." She deletes it just after midnight. Across social media, the theories erupt like spores. Reddit threads multiply with side-by-side comparisons. TikTok sleuths match the walk, the jawline, the ear shape. But it's not the certainty that keeps people watching. It's the ambiguity, the not quite confirmed, the almost. By dusk, no official confirmation has been made. No denial either. The Royal Press Office issues a statement about ongoing family privacy, which only deepens the echo. And so the truth, as it often does in stories this deep, begins to lurk. It's not being told, it's being observed, measured by how people recoil, whispered through the glass of press room doors, seen in the sudden stiffening of shoulders every time someone mentions the London years. The silence isn't confusion, it's calculation. Back in the hallway, a lawyer sits on a bench, scrolling through his phone. His leg bounces uncontrollably. He reads the text again. HRH is on record. 3 words. But they open 1,000 questions. Not why is he here, but why now? And beneath that, something quieter, more human, something unspoken that threads through every mind in the building. What did he see? And more haunting still, what made him come back? He takes the stand without pretense. No tailored suit, no polished shoes. His jacket is wrinkled at the elbows, his tie slightly off-center, like it was tied in the back of a cab. His name is read into the record with the same clipped formality all witnesses receive, but his presence doesn't command attention. Not right away. He looks like someone who hasn't slept well in years. The judge nods. The clerk swears him in. And when he speaks, it's not with confidence, but with care, as if the words have weight and he's still deciding whether it's safe to carry them in front of strangers. "I used to do event work," he says softly, eyes lowered toward his hands. "Private parties, clubs, nothing official. I was paid to forget what I saw." The gallery tilts forward, subtly. It's not the words themselves, but the way he says them, like each one scrapes something loose inside his chest. He opens a folder. The prosecutor steps forward, gently, not prompting, just present. The photographer doesn't look at her. He continues, "I wasn't supposed to keep anything, but I did. I kept some backups. some raw files, stuff that didn't make it to the public reels. He holds up a sheet. The screen behind him flickers on. A projected image, black and white, grainy but sharp where it counts. A lavish lounge, dim with shadow and chandeliers. Faces caught in mid-laughter, drinks raised in celebration, a DJ blurred behind glass. He flips again. Another image, tighter shot. Faces this time, known ones. A pop star, an executive, a producer whose name once filled arenas. Another click, and then it appears. A third photo, this one quieter, less posed, less curated. In the far corner of the frame, almost an accident, a young man stands near a balcony, alone, half lit by the city bleeding through the windows behind him. The image isn't clear, but the outline is unmistakable. Tall, slender, a crop of messy ginger hair glowing faintly in the dark. No name is spoken, but a ripple passes through the courtroom like a shared breath. A murmur, faint and sudden, ripples the back row. Someone whispers, just loud enough to rupture the silence. "That's Harry." The judge doesn't intervene. She hears it. Everyone does. But she allows the moment to breathe, to land where it needs to. The photographer clears his throat. His voice wavers. "I didn't know who he was. Not that night. I didn't ask questions. I was told to shoot wide, stay out of the way, and never, ever use flash." He steps back from the image, almost like he doesn't want to see it again. "That night changed a lot of things," he adds quietly, his voice almost breaking. "And not just for me." He doesn't explain, doesn't need to. The defense doesn't move. No objection, no cross-examination prep, no whispering down the line of their table. Just stillness, rigid, rehearsed, suddenly uncertain. The gallery remains locked. The photo lingers on the screen longer than it should. The silence isn't dramatic. It's honest, thick, heavy. The prosecutor asks one final question, eyes soft but certain. "Did you know who you were photographing when you took that shot?" "No," he answers. And then, after a pause, looking at the image, looking through it, "But I know now." He takes the stand not as a prince, not as a symbol, not even as a man defending himself. He takes it as someone who has carried something for too long. The oath feels heavier in his mouth than it should. His hand trembles slightly as it rises, then falls. There is no royal armor on him today, no medals, no regalia, no handlers in the wings. Just a dark suit, a white shirt, and the quiet kind of pain that ages a person without ever wrinkling the skin. The judge asks him to state his name. He does calmly. "Henry Charles Albert David." The courtroom adjusts itself to the new gravity. Reporters lean in. Counsel shifts pens and fingers, already slick with nerves. But Harry looks only forward, not at the gallery, not at the defense, not even at the judge. Straight ahead, as if he's telling this to the one person who might never hear it. At first, he is cautious, measured. "I didn't come here for spectacle," he begins, "and I didn't come here for revenge." A pause, breath drawn, then exhaled. "I came here because silence, after a while, starts to rot the person keeping it." He speaks slowly, but not out of fear, out of care. His voice, refined but strained, floats across the room with a softness that cuts sharper than any raised tone ever could. "I remember that night. I remember the room. It was dark, not just dimly lit, but dark. The kind of place that wants to hide you, not host you." He swallows, his throat tightening as he continues. "You learn in places like that how to read the room without using your eyes. The shift in laughter, the way music changes volume but not rhythm. The moment the air thins, not because of temperature, but because someone just entered." He glances at the prosecutor briefly, then lowers his eyes. "Some people walk into a room and make you feel safe. Others make the room quieter." Another pause, longer this time. "I was pulled aside, not forced, not dragged, just redirected. A hand on my shoulder, the kind that's meant to feel like a favor. Not pressure, not yet." He doesn't elaborate, doesn't give details for tabloids to rip apart. But the image forms anyway, clearer for what he leaves unsaid. "I went down a hallway. It was colder than the rest of the flat. A small thing, but I remember it. Some details never fade. He inhales, eyes blinking faster now. I stood there listening, not to threats, not to orders, just to insinuations. Jokes with too much gravity behind them. Compliments that felt like warnings. It wasn't the words. It was the space between them. His hands clench in his lap. It was one of the first times I felt truly powerless as an adult. And not because I couldn't leave, but because I knew, if I did, it would follow me. That's what power is, isn't it? The kind that doesn't need to touch you to leave a mark. His voice falters. Just a little. I didn't tell anyone. Not that night. Not for a long time. I buried it in the part of my memory reserved for things I was expected to endure. A small shift in his chair. I thought I could just forget it. Then he stops, just for a breath. When he speaks again, his voice is barely above a whisper. But forgetting is something only the guilty get to do. That line lands differently. It doesn't shock the room. It stills it. Like a piano key held down for too long, ringing beyond its measure. He continues, eyes now glistening. I'm a father now. I have a son who doesn't yet understand the world, and a daughter who, one day, will. I don't want to teach them how to navigate around shadows. I want them to know they can walk through the light and not be hunted for it. He breaks just once here. Not a sob, not a spectacle, just a catch in the throat. A breath that doesn't make it all the way in. A handkerchief is passed to him quietly. He doesn't take it. He just closes his eyes, lets the moment pass, then reopens them. I didn't come to accuse, he says at last. That's not my role, and it's not what this courtroom needs more of. He straightens, a resolve settling in. But I came because too many people keep waiting for someone else to start telling the truth. And waiting is just another way of saying, I'm not ready to lose anything. He nods softly. The silence in the room is total, not performative, just real. I've already lost enough, he says, but I'd rather lose comfort than carry this any further. He doesn't wait to be dismissed. He doesn't look for approval. He rises from the stand, steps down, and walks toward the exit. The courtroom watches him, not as royalty, not as a man testifying, but as someone who finally stopped waiting for someone else to speak first. Day 19 begins without ceremony. No announcement, no grand entrance. Just the quiet, conspicuous absence of one man. The chair at the defense table, where Sean Diddy Combs has sat for the better part of 3 weeks, remains vacant. Not symbolically, not defiantly, just vacantly. There is no coat draped across the back, no bottled water with the cap left half twisted, no legal pads marked in a familiar scrawl. Just air and space and a silence that feels less like an accident and more like a retreat. The judge enters. The attorneys rise, the gallery settles. But there's a delay. A brief, strained moment where protocol hangs suspended in the space between acknowledgement and confusion. The court clerk checks a file again. The lead defense attorney stands slowly, as though motion itself might betray more than words. We've been informed, he begins, then pauses to recalibrate, that the defendant will not be present today for medical reasons. No one asks what kind of medical. No one needs to. His co-counsel leans in, whispering behind a hand. Not strategy, secrecy. They speak with the language of the cornered. Short bursts, avoided eye contact, notes slid rather than spoken. One attorney keeps glancing toward the gallery, as if checking for someone who might not even be there. In the hallway, whispers run faster than official statements ever could. A journalist mouths it first to a colleague. Panic attack. Another corrects him. Threats made against him. In another counters. He's refusing to cooperate with his own team. Rumors begin to pile like snow in spring. Unstoppable, messy, premature, and strangely believable. No one knows the whole truth, but everyone feels the shift. The control Diddy once had, the swagger, the invincibility. It's no longer a presence. It's become an absence, and the absence grows louder by the hour. Mid-morning, the prosecution announces they've entered new evidence into record. A batch of archived surveillance footage pulled from a nightclub security system over a decade old. The kind of footage that had supposedly been erased. But like most things tied to power, it was only buried, not destroyed. The footage hasn't yet been shown. It hasn't even been described in court. but its mere existence alters the temperature in the room. The defense team doesn't object to its inclusion. They simply sit still and adjust their ties. Outside the courtroom, the press begins to notice something else. One of Diddy's former collaborators, an artist known for once calling him a visionary, has quietly deleted every photo, every post, every tagged appearance with his name. The erasure isn't noisy. It doesn't come with a statement. It just disappears, one by one, like photos falling off a wall no one admits to building. On Instagram, a fashion brand he once partnered with archives a campaign reel that featured him in slow motion. The caption that once read iconic now leads to a broken link. It's not cancellation, not yet. It's something deeper, something more surgical. Inside the courtroom, his attorneys struggle to hold the thread. They speak, yes, but they don't argue. They suggest, they question process, but they no longer refute the emotional current running through the room. It's like watching a defense team plead not for innocence, but for mercy they know will never arrive. By the afternoon recess, his absence is no longer surprising. It's expected. And with that expectation comes a realization too quiet to say aloud. This is not about proving guilt anymore. It's about watching power decay in real time. The kind of decay that doesn't rot, it recedes. The light around his name dulls. The certainty people once whispered in back rooms, "He'll be fine, he always is," starts to feel outdated, naive. In the courtroom, the empty chair remains. It is not a symbol of injustice. It is not the seat of a martyr. It is not waiting to be filled. It simply sits there, quiet, shamefully vacant, and the room begins to understand. The silence of a man who always spoke now speaks more loudly than ever. The media doesn't explode, it shudders. There's no frenzy of breaking news alerts, no fevered panel debates with spinning graphics or hashtags screaming in bold caps. Not this time. The temperature shift is slower, deeper. Less about what's being said, more about what people stop saying. Less about headlines, more about undercurrents. Across social media, the silence starts bending, but not into noise, into recollection. People don't post statements, they post memories. A blurry backstage photo from 2012 resurfaces. Diddy in a velvet jacket, grinning beside a British flag and a group of unnamed guests. In the far edge of the frame, barely discernible, a ginger head turned away from the camera. No one tags Prince Harry. They don't have to. The context speaks louder than any handle. On Instagram, a stylist once tied to royal event planning quietly removes a tagged story. No caption, just gone. A celebrity makeup artist follows suit. Her feed, once flooded with behind-the-scenes photos from music award after-parties, goes suspiciously sterile. Just a wall of curated content. Nothing personal, nothing traceable. But absence, like smoke, reveals where the fire used to be. Then the follows begin to disappear. A royal aide unfollows a well-known producer, one linked to Diddy's inner circle. A few blue check marks notice, screen cap the moment, and circulate it without words. In the modern court of public opinion, who you stand beside often means more than what you say. The unfollow becomes a verdict. Rihanna reposts a quote, no photo attached. Truth needs no volume to be heard, no mention of the case, no hashtags, but her 160 million followers know. The timing is its own declaration. Across late-night TV, something shifts. Talk show hosts, once giddy at the mere mention of royal scandal or music mogul gossip, stiffen around the subject. Their voices drop half a pitch. Their smiles falter. One showrunner scraps an entire pre-written monologue. Another edits around a joke already taped. The jokes land differently now, not with laughter, but with restraint. Yet the audience listens more closely. They lean forward when a host almost says a name, then veers left. They study the space where the story should be told, and wonder why it's not. Meanwhile, a 10-year-old clip of Prince Harry is dug out of the BBC archives. He's exiting a charity gala in London. A reporter asks casually, "Were you at the party last week with Diddy?" Harry replies with a tight smile and a two-word dismissal. No comment. The clip goes viral within hours. Not because of what he said, but because of how he said it. Eyes slightly averted, jaw clenched tighter than the question deserved. Online, the discourse doesn't center around guilt. It orbits silence, the absence of denial, the quiet erasures, the shrinking digital footprints. A thread titled, "Where Were You in May 2012?" trends for a full day on Twitter. Not because people remember exactly, but because now they're wondering what they were trained not to remember. Screenshots pile in from club promoters, event planners, behind-the-scenes DJs, all hinting, never confirming. It's not gossip. It's sedimentary truth, layered and old and only now being excavated. A pop culture podcast drops a surprise episode. Its title is simple: Unsaid Doesn't Mean Untrue. Within 12 hours, it hits #1 on Spotify. The hosts don't mention the trial directly. They don't have to. They talk about the architecture of memory, about how powerful men leave trails behind that don't glow, but ache. Even casual viewers begin to shift their focus. The comments under old Diddy interviews on YouTube are no longer full of praise or nostalgia. They're filled with quiet suspicion, soft accusations, and the unsettling sense that a curtain was always there. They just never thought to pull it back. The algorithm catches on. It starts resurfacing moments, threading timelines together, not connecting dots, just drawing them. And in that slow burn, something collective begins to awaken. This isn't a scandal anymore. It's something older. It's not cancel culture. It's reckoning culture. The culture of, "You knew, didn't you?" The culture of, "Why didn't you say something sooner?" People no longer ask what happened in that hallway in 2012. They ask, who else was standing nearby? And the most haunting question of all begins to echo, even in the silence. Why did you stay quiet until someone else stepped forward first? Because this isn't about gossip. It's about memory. And memory, once reactivated, never shuts up. The trial, once narrow and shrouded in spectacle, begins to breathe wider. Day 20 opens without drama, but with a tension so taut it no longer needs introduction. It hums through the bench, the jury box, the press row. What was once a celebrity scandal has begun its metamorphosis, becoming something more deliberate, more structured, more dangerous. It no longer leans on memory alone. It starts leaning on infrastructure. The first to take the stand that morning is a catering manager. Middle-aged, composed, dressed plainly, she clutches a small folder as if it holds not just her notes, but her spine. She worked the May 2012 party in London, the one everyone now refers to without naming outright. Her voice doesn't waver when she speaks. It doesn't need to. She's not here to speculate. She's here to recall. The original order was for 120 guests, she says, adjusting her glasses. At 4:17 p.m., the day of the event, we received a text message from a number listed in our vendor database, requesting an increase to 121. That alone wouldn't mean much, but then she pulls out a printed copy of the guest list. 2 versions, one time-stamped 10:42 a.m., the other 5:03 p.m. On the second list, a line near the bottom has been handwritten in block letters. Special UK guest. No press, no ID. It's not a name. It's not a title. But it lands in the courtroom like a breadcrumb in a forest already aflame. The prosecution displays the printed email chain on the courtroom monitors. It's mundane in tone, professional, courteous, but the coded language isn't subtle. Please ensure the new guest has walked in through back access. The usual discretion applies. Use room 7 for introductions. Room 7. No one had mentioned room 7 before. Enter the next witness, a former assistant to the event planner, nervous but firm. She doesn't smile. She clutches her statement like a confession. There was a room attached to the main lounge, she says. It wasn't on the official blueprints filed for permits, but it was real, soundproof, low lighting, faux wall panels, used for introductions, as they called it. The prosecutor lays a 3D floor plan on the screen. It's animated, rotatable, zoomable, and built from architectural blueprints subpoenaed from the property management company. There it is, room 7, nestled behind a linen closet, labeled storage on the official drawings. But in this version, With overlay notes provided by the assistant herself, the truth is clear. It had a couch, a mirrored wall, recessed lighting, and no security cameras. The room goes quiet again, not from shock anymore, but from slow realization. What was once considered conspiracy now looks designed. Another witness is called, this one a private jet booking agent. She verifies a flight manifest from May 2012, a jet departing Heathrow the morning after the party, destination Los Angeles. Listed on board are several industry executives, a well-known model, and one unnamed passenger logged as UK diplomatic guest, no customs required. It wasn't protocol, it wasn't even legal, but it was done, and the gallery understands. This wasn't improvisation, it was orchestration. The evidence begins layering itself not in accusations, but in repetition. The same patterns, hidden beneath different details. Rooms within rooms, guests without names. It becomes clear this wasn't a one-off, it was a routine. A system with rotating doors, selective lighting, and airbrushed documentation. The prosecution then introduces an internal event memo, retrieved from an encrypted backup. Most of it is redacted, a black sea of vanished meaning, but a few lines remain visible. One of them reads, "Remember, we don't vet power, we host it." The phrase hangs in the courtroom like smoke too thick to cough out. It doesn't name names, it doesn't accuse, but it tells everyone watching exactly what they need to know. Because what's emerging here isn't just testimony, it's architecture, physical, digital, procedural, spaces built to contain and conceal, systems designed to erase timelines and replace names with codes, motives with atmospheres. The intent isn't screamed into microphones. It's whispered in corridors shaped to swallow echoes. And no one, not even the defense, tries to deny knowing anymore. They shift uncomfortably. They consult one another. They argue about definitions, what soundproof might mean, what VIP access typically implies, but they no longer debate whether the structures existed. Because they do. The floor plans don't lie. The emails don't vanish. The patterns don't forget themselves. There's a moment, late in the afternoon, when the prosecutor stands still at the front of the courtroom. No dramatic flair, no summation, just one quiet sentence. You don't need a name to feel the shape of a trap. No one objects, and for the first time, it becomes clear. This isn't about a singular incident. It's not about a man with a name that once held weight. It's about the rooms he walked through, the ones built not to be seen, but used, and now finally revealed. It is the final week of the trial, and the room no longer holds its breath. It exhales in slow, exhausted waves. There is no announcement of absence this time, no folded note passed to the clerk, no lawyer rising to explain. Just the fact of it. Diddy is not here. His chair remains untouched, its shape no longer reserved but surrendered. The nameplate before it gleams in the morning light, untouched and unnecessary. His lawyer arrives alone, carrying not a briefcase but the visible erosion of confidence. The sharpness that once defined the defense table is dulled. There are no whispered jokes, no confident nods. Just a man in a suit too crisp for the moment, holding together a performance that no longer has a script. Then the doors open quietly. He returns, not the man the tabloids chase or the titles used in courtroom transcripts, but simply Harry. He walks in alone, his stride calm, shoulders not squared in defense, but lowered in acceptance. There is no royal protocol trailing behind him, only the quiet murmur of the press gallery stiffening at his silhouette. He doesn't speak this time. He doesn't need to. The weight of what he's already said lingers like perfume that never fully leaves the air. He sits near the back, not in the witness box, but as an observer. A participant turned witness, turned anchor. He's no longer giving testimony. He's watching it unfold. In the aisle, Kim Porter's sister sits folded into herself. Her arms are crossed, not in defiance but in protection. Her grief is quiet, unpolished. Her eyes remain forward, but it's clear she isn't watching the trial anymore. She's remembering. There is a power in that stillness, a language spoken only by those who've survived something too complicated to name. Then comes the final testimony of the day. An older man steps up. His name is familiar, if only whispered in corridors and record label memoirs. A former music executive, one of those voices who once moved entire charts with a nod. Now he moves slowly, carefully. His voice carries the rasp of age and fear. "I was at the party," he says almost too softly. "Not the whole time, just long enough." He shifts in his seat, wipes his brow, looks toward no one. "There were always rooms you didn't go into, not because you weren't allowed, but because you didn't want to know what was behind them." A single juror exhales, sharp and sudden. Her hand lifts toward her cheek, brushing away the first tear. The executive continues. "We built events around aura, around control. You didn't have to say the rules out loud. Everyone already knew them." He clears his throat. "You don't just lose your memory. You choose which parts to forget." He leaves the stand like a man who's just torn off a mask he forgot he was wearing. Then it comes. The final video. It arrives quietly. No dramatic USB reveal. Just a digital file submitted and verified. Its timestamp and metadata confirmed. The lights dim slightly for clarity, but it feels theatrical anyway. On screen, a grainy black and white security feed. Static flickers. A long hallway. One figure walks ahead. Tall, shoulders hunched slightly, coat brushing the floor. The other is shorter, more poised, familiar in posture. The taller figure disappears into room 7. The shorter one waits. He glances once toward the camera. The image freezes. There's no sound, no faces in full view, no physical act recorded, just implication, just motion, just timing. The video ends. The lights return. No one says Diddy's name. Not the prosecutor, not the defense, not the witness. But his absence now weighs more than his presence ever did. He doesn't need to be in the room. His shadow is. One by one, members of the press lower their eyes, not in defeat, in recognition. This isn't the end of a trial. It's the unraveling of an era. An architecture built on silence and proximity and smoke-filled corridors is starting to collapse. Not in explosion, but in rot. And even as the judge dismisses for the day, her gavel barely makes a sound. No one rises in a rush. No one speaks above a whisper. People file out slowly, heads down, as if leaving a church after hearing a sermon that wasn't about forgiveness, but about what happens when forgiveness is no longer enough. In the gallery, Harry remains seated for a moment longer, watching the screen now blank. His eyes do not water, but his jaw is set in that familiar way, like someone who has made peace with discomfort. Not because he's learned to live with it, but because he's decided never to turn away from it again. And as the final lights click off above the empty jury box, the room holds one last image. No flickering, no power surge, no cinematic twist. Just this. The courtroom lights don't flicker, but somehow, the room still feels darker than before. The courtroom is empty now, not just of people, but of noise, of momentum, of defense. All that remains is the echo of what's been said and the weight of what never will be. The overhead lights hum faintly, their flickering gone, but still casting long shadows across the floor. The witness stand, once a stage for grief and confession, now sits untouched, the cushions still faintly indented from the weight of stories finally unburied. A few chairs remain skewed, never pushed back into place, as though the people who filled them had left in such a hurry they forgot how to finish the moment. Near the back, a few reporters linger, laptops closed, screens dimmed. No one is typing. No one is dictating. They sit with hands still hovering near keyboards as if unsure whether to write what they saw or just carry it. Because how do you summarize silence? How do you headline a truth that was never officially spoken, only circled like a shark in dark water? One journalist stares at a blank document. The blinking cursor pulses like a heartbeat, but she doesn't move. Not yet. Not tonight. Outside the courthouse, Prince Harry stands at the edge of the sidewalk. Not as a spectacle, not even as a witness anymore. He isn't flanked by security. There are no cameras flashing, no press lines. Just him, in the open air. Coat collar turned up, eyes steady. He isn't pacing. He isn't hiding. He's just there. Not royal, not rebel, just real. A guard inside begins packing away exhibits. Thick envelopes, sealed evidence slips, stacks of transcripts. One manila folder remains on the clerk's desk. No one claims it. Its corners are frayed, the tab labeled in pen long, faded into a blur of ink and time. Its contents aren't revealed, but it stays, as if waiting for a name no one wants to say. And somewhere far beyond the courtroom, beyond the stories and posts and videos and updates, something cold, unshakable settles in the bones of those who've been watching. A voice, not loud, not hopeful, just final. The names we don't speak are often the ones we whisper the longest.